Come on, record. All right, we're on. Welcome, everyone. Today we are chatting about pacing. Super excited for this one. Ryan, first question for you, mate, because you're on the trainer over in America right now. What is the goal of pacing in a triathlon or an Ironman or something? Why do we want to pace? What's the goal?
I mean, we don't want to cook ourselves, right? You can't go too hard too early. You got to save some in the tank.
Yep, I like it. Kay, you want to expand on that for me? You're on mute.
Someone else did that. I don't know how it happened. I've always understood that you save your legs for the run, and that the bike is where you either make the run or you fail the run. So it's more of a negative split type situation.
Interesting. Negative split. I like that word. We're going to talk about that probably a little bit later on. Yep. So essentially, like the reason we pace in anything is so that we can get to the end of the race as fast as we can with using using our energy most efficiently, right? So why do we go and get a better bike? Why do we get aero? We want to get faster, right? So we want to get to the end and we want to use our energy as efficiently as possible. That's what we're trying to do with pacing. What makes it hard though? Like what are some things that make pacing hard, Liam?
I don't know, just like adrenaline, getting caught up in the race.
That is a big one.
Weather can sometimes put your pacing off as well. If it's too hot, you might be having to go a bit slower. Yeah, I don't know.
Definitely. I like both of those answers. Weather and what was the first one? Like adrenaline. Yeah. Finny, what else?
I don't know if you can hear me. My connection's pretty bad.
Yeah, we got it.
Wait, what was the question?
What makes pacing hard?
It can change day to day. Like you're talking about before, like my long ride, your body can just say no, and then you can't hit them figures.
Yeah,
that's a big factor.
I think the biggest thing for me, especially like a year and a half to 2 years ago, was just the lack of experience with the sport or the distances, right? Like I wanted to do Cairns and my intention was to go sub 10, but I thought I knew how to pace, but I just went way too hard on the bike, man. So I think like the biggest thing is lack of experience. And to be honest with you, like it's really hard to learn let's just use Ironman as an example. It's really hard to learn the distances of an Ironman and how to pace that really well, unless you're going to do more Ironmans, right? And that's just reality. There's also another big one though, and I think Liam touched on this, is like adrenaline in the race. I'm going to use the word emotion and like ego. So when I was starting out and when I was leading up to Cairns, I definitely let my emotion or my ego get in the way of pacing well. I thought, a 5-hour bike split, I can get that. I'm going to chase that down, and then I should be able to run a 3:30 marathon easy, right? So like I just this emotion, this ego, really affected my pacing strategy. In fact, I didn't really have a proper pacing strategy. So that's one thing that like we're going to really touch on today is like how do we balance emotion during a race and to essentially pace to the best of our ability. We've touched on weather. We'll get to that a little bit later. Things like fueling hiccups. If you drop a bottle, that's going to affect pacing. We're going to have to sort of like shift the strategy a little bit so we can talk about that. Different courses, hills. Like you're going to race a hilly course way different to how you're going to race Busso, right? It's just going to be completely different. Busso Ryan is the race I did, super flat. So yeah, depending on the course type, that's going to change our pacing strategy. And there's a couple other little things that we might mention, get to a little bit later. But before we get stuck in, I want to do a couple of scenarios and we're going to sort of talk about like as a group and figure out what we would do in any given situation. Before we do that though, we kind of need to know some of the terms and clarify some of the terms, like a glossary. I think I put this into the chat. Finn, what's RPE?
Rate of perceived effort. So it's basically how you would rate how hard you're trying on a scale of 1 to 10. So like 5 being like medium to moderate and 1 being I'm going for a walk type thing. 10's all out, obviously.
10's max out effort. Exactly. Yep. So that is the key word there is perceived effort. So like what you perceive the effort to be. So it might be, say, a long run that's meant to feel relatively comfortably uncomfortable, but you might be having a day like Finney was having yesterday, and it's just super difficult. Your RPE's through the roof, right? There's no real way to like assume on any given day what RPE is going to feel like. Some days it feels really easy, some days it feels really hard. I'm sure you guys have all experienced that. KDOS, what is threshold? What's your understanding of threshold?
From my understanding, it's the point at where you'll start exerting perhaps a bit more than you expect, or it's the point where your body's going to start consuming a lot more energy. I don't know if that's right.
Yeah, so you're real close. Liam or Ryan want to touch on what you think threshold is?
I honestly, I my understanding is kind of a lot like Cade's. Like, I've never really done research on what the different zones actually mean. But from what I got, like, when they'll say like threshold run or threshold bike, like, I think it lines up a lot with what he said. It's the point where you feel like you're pushing a lot harder. It's maybe a power or a pace that can't hold for quite as long.
Okay, I like that. I really like what you just said there. Liam, go again.
My understanding is I've always had sort of two thresholds. There's like your lactate threshold, which is when your lactate production exceeds the removal, and that's depending on the pace. And then it's also depends sometimes that's defined by like your maximum output for an hour. So like what you could run for an hour, what you could put out in the bike for an hour. Sometimes those paces are considered threshold. That was my understanding.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily just an hour as such. I think in the bike and run it is. That's why we do like an FTP of 20 minutes. It's sort of meant to be like an estimate of. I'm actually answering one of the questions I've got coming up. Bugger. Anyway, but CSS, for example, your swim threshold is sort of meant to be what you could sustain, not necessarily for an hour because that's really, really long in the pool, right? So it might be sort of 1,500 meters or something like that, right? There would be different coaches and different systems would go off different, but it's essentially meant to be a pace or a feeling that you can sustain for an extended period of time without just blowing up quickly. I like to use an analogy, which it really made sense to me. When let's just imagine you've got a fire in front of you, right? You can hold your hands to warm your hands up by the fire, and it's like this, and you could keep it there for ages, right? Essentially forever. And that could be sort of zone 1, zone 2. And then if you start to move your hands closer to the fire, right, it's going to start to sting. You could probably still hold it there for a good like sort of 10 seconds before you really have to pull away. But it's starting to be like that's the lactate coming in now. This is really starting to hurt. I couldn't sustain this for super long, right? That's threshold. And then the next question that I've got here is what is VO2? VO2 is when you're putting your hands in the fire, right? It's where it's like just happening. It's burning so quickly and you just can't sustain it for very long at all. And you're getting the fuck out of there real quick. So that's the sort of sort of aerobic base here. Thresholds, putting your hands near it. VO2's in the fire, and it's over very, very quickly. Okay. What's the difference between aerobic, Finn, and anaerobic? Are you there, Finny? I'm not sure if you are or not, but if you are, what's the difference between like aerobic and anaerobic systems? He might be gone. Anyone else want to chime in there? Yep. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Coe. From my understanding, aerobic. Hold on, wait. Is this still Saturday for you, Ryan?
It is.
Oh, happy Valentine's, Ryan. You beautiful bastard. Happy Valentine's, you gorgeous man. Anyway, aerobic is like a steady pace. It's when your heart is working, but it's that cool, consistent effort that you can sit at for quite a while. And then my understanding of anaerobic is like sprints, like that 0 to 100 super quick.
Liam, anything else on that?
I believe aerobics generally just like means you're using your aerobic system, so oxygen delivery, whereas anaerobic is without oxygen and you're doing it generally very, very short because it's pure just muscle force.
Bingo. 100%. So aerobically, we're using oxygen. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not breathing when you're doing anaerobic stuff, but your muscles aren't using the oxygen to produce the energy, right? It's using other sources, whether it's carbs or there might be a little bit of fats in there and stuff like that. But you've hit the nail on the head there, right? When we're in aerobic league, we can use oxygen, and therefore we can sustain it for way longer. But once we're above our anaerobic threshold, then we're using no oxygen, and it's again over pretty quickly. Okay, and it's really exponential. Like you can go up to your threshold and be getting rid of the lactate and just stay there, and you can do it for ages. And then the moment you tip over it, it might only be like an extra 5 minutes per kilometer that you go above. It makes such a difference. All right. And then going back to last week when we spoke about like body awareness and understanding the body, finding that threshold, even if your watch might be off and your heart rate stuff might be off, finding that threshold in your mind of being like, that is where my tipping point is super valuable for you guys. All right. So keep working on that body awareness. And then last question before we get into these examples, I want to know like, I think it was sort of touching on it before, but what does our FTP, our CSS, and our 30-minute run threshold, what does that represent? Like, what are we actually trying to figure out when we do those tests? Anyone?
Is it just our limits, like our zones and our limits?
Use the terminology that we've just been focusing on, like recently.
Our aerobic and anaerobic threshold.
It's our threshold, right? We're trying to figure out, and Liam touched on this before where it was talking about like the run threshold being sort of like an hour. We're trying to figure out how long, at what pace, sorry, could we sustain for a long period of time, whether it's up to an hour or, what's that pace that we can sustain at? Now, for a 30-minute run test, it's not perfect because you can sort of grind it out and sit above it and still hold on for a little bit. But if we were to go out and do a 60-minute run test, that's really fatiguing on the body. Like it really hurts you and it affects other training and stuff like that. Similar with the bike. Ideally, in a perfect world, we would do a 60-minute test, but 60-minute threshold on the bike is just going to absolutely cook you, ruin like some of the longer stuff. Okay. So we do like an estimate based off of the results that we get from the 20 and 30-minute tests. I mean, the 30-minute test we actually just end up using, but the 20-minute test we times it by 0.95, and that should give us an estimate of what we could sustain for an hour, and that's essentially our cycling threshold. Same with CSS, we're just figuring out our threshold, right? Cool. Let's talk about some examples in like real life race day scenarios, and then you guys are going to tell me how you would pace this or what you would do, right? So we're in an Ironman. You've got an FTP of 280, and the race target power is 195, about 70%. You're 25 Ks in and you're naturally riding about 205 watts. So about 10 watts above where your target is. Your heart rate's low, so about 8 beats lower than what you would expect. And your RPE is about a 5 out of 10. Do we, A, stick to 205 watts, settle back down to 195 watts, or potentially push up to 215 watts? What are we doing?
How far are we in the bike ride?
25K out of an Ironman. So it's early days.
Out of the full 180, damn. It's quite early to be bumping it up. I'd probably stay at a 5 or drop it down.
Okay.
But if it's a 5, I feel like if it's steady, I'd stay 5.
Okay, so talk about the power for me. So where's target power is 195, and we're sitting for the first 25 Ks, we're at 205. What are you doing?
I'd probably stay at 205.
Stay at 205?
Yeah. You could also say, like, I feel like if there's hills, I mean, assuming like it's completely fat, I'd probably stay at 205. But with hills and like wind and stuff, you could like.
Let's just assume it's flat. Let's just assume it's a completely flat course. You're at 205. Your target power is 195. Finny, can you hear us? Would you like to chime in what you would do? I'm super interested to know your thoughts.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
You got me? Sorry, my connection's so bad. Just let me know if you can't hear me. Yeah, basically, I would have a coach. Obviously, Alex is my coach, and we would create a race plan, and I would stick to that race plan no matter if I'm feeling super good. I would try stick to that until sort of end like halfway through my run, and then if I'm still feeling good, that's when I'll maybe decide to pick things up. But it's more often than not, your brain can play tricks on you, and you might be feeling super good, and then all of a sudden you just bonk. And if you're not sticking to that race plan, everything goes down from there. Or like Alex was saying, it could be your ego. Like you
Liam,
might think
great
you're
answer.
doing really good.
Great answer, Finn, mate. I love that from you. Liam, anything else to add to that?
I pretty much agree with Finn there. I would probably the targets are probably there for a reason. So I'd probably drop it back so early. And then if I am feeling good on the second half, the last 25Ks, I'd bump it back up. But
So
I'd prefer to be conservative in the bike and go hard in the run than if it's the bike.
speaking from experience, 10 watts doesn't sound like a lot. Not 195 to 205. It doesn't sound like that much of a jump, and especially if you're feeling good, your heart rate's low, you're thinking, why not? Like I can push this. But you're 25K in, so you're probably really excited to get out of the water, right? You're flying on the bike. You're glad to be there. You, like Finn said, your mind can play a lot of tricks on you, and you've still got just under 160K on the bike, and then a marathon. The compounding of that 10 watts is so drastic at the back half of the marathon. It's wild, man, and it's something that I had to find out the hard way at Cairns. But would highly recommend, if you've got a race plan, stick to it. At least then, if you've stuck to the plan, at any point in the race, you can be like, well, I have done, like your mind, the psychological gains of being able to go, this was the plan and I've done it. I've executed it perfectly. Then you can always come back and go reset and sort of figure out what went wrong from the plan. But if you go ahead and do 205s or even go above 205s, and then you get to the point where you are bonking, it like you just it's like what do you fall back on, right? So Kados, I would recommend trying to, like Finney said, let the emotion go, get back into the plan. 195. Take the gains in that first 25. Like say, all right, well we were 10 watts above. No worries, I'll just cop that. Get back into 195, stay aero, and then go and stick to the plan. That's what I would do, and that what I'd advise to do. Cool. Scenario 2. We'll rip through these. You're racing a 70.3. Your CSS is, this should be a pretty easy one. I think most of you will fly through this one. CSS is 140 per 100 meters, and the first 200 meters is chaotic. You check your watch and you're doing 128 pace. All right, your breathing's rushed, your heart rate is drifting. But if you ease off, the group that you're swimming with is going to swim away. What do you do? Do you hold the pace, stay with them? Do you back off? And if you do back off, where do you settle? Ryan, let's. Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, as we all know, the swim is like by far the shortest part of the race. So, at least for me, I feel like the goal with the swim should be stick to like your specific pace. Make sure you don't get behind on whatever your goal time is, but basically just set yourself up for, you know, like if you get 10% better at the bike, you're dropping 30 minutes. But if you get 10% better at the swim, you're dropping like 4. So I would say definitely pull back, let the group get away from you. You'll catch them on the bike. Don't stress it at all.
Yep. So we're like swimming's so hard because we don't have any metrics, right? Like I'm not looking at my watch, I'm not looking at my heart rate, I'm not looking at my pace when I'm swimming. I'm just in a flow. So when I ask the question like, where do we settle? If we are pulling back from that group and we are settling somewhere, where do we go? Like, how should I know, or what should I be looking for to settle back into what I need to be doing?
I have a big feeling like my roommate is just getting into swimming as well, and a lot of times he'll talk about pace, and I'll say I feel like with swimming, obviously pace is important because you need it to get a bit of an understanding of how fast you're going, but I feel like feel in the water is like one of the biggest things. I said to him, like with all my stuff, you got like my normal pace, which is just a little bit harder than easy, and then there's hard where you know what hard is, and then you sprint, which is like nothing's left on the table. And for me, I feel like when I did the try series in my first try, and I did it in the try series in November, the first 300 meters were just like fucking every man for themselves. And then it wasn't until like the first buoy that I went a little bit too wide and I kind of separated myself accidentally that I was like, okay, now I found my rhythm again. And like that feeling, the feel of the water was like, I could actually feel it. Like it wasn't just like my heart pounding.
Yeah. 100, yeah, definitely agree, man. The feel is what I go off in any given race. I would recommend that if you are super beginner, that you sit at somewhere like this is a 70.3 race. You sit at like sort of like a 5 RPE, right? So 5 out of 10, really like pretty comfortable. If you're intermediate or advanced, and like pick it up to sort of 6 or 7 out of 10, but you really don't want to be getting that to 9, 10 out of 10. Like, it's not meant to be like that. You've still got a lot of racing to go, but I wouldn't be stopping and looking at my pace constantly trying to figure it out. No way. Good answer, Kate.
I saw, like, I don't know who told me this, but someone, it could have just been on Insta or something, but someone said, like, you can't win on the swim, but you can most definitely lose it. So
Yep.
with that, I've kind of pushed forward with that mindset that it's you need to treat it like you're not trying to win the race in the swim.
100%, man. And a lot of people think, oh, get into a group, trying to, save some watts here and there. The best way that you're going to save effort is by getting into your own rhythm, man. That's from my experience anyway. I find it really difficult to stay on someone's feet because maybe if you're in the pro field and you're like constantly doing it, yeah. But if you're in an age group that's just so chaotic, man, just try and get into the best rhythm you can. That's my advice. Is what I tell everyone in all my athletes. So. Good stuff. Last one before we move into some actual proper questions, I guess. Back to the Ironman situation. Same FTP, 280. Target still 195. This time around though, your first 10K on the bike feels super hard, not easy. Your legs are heavy, your heart rate's high, and your RP is about a 7 at your target power, right? What do we do? Do we reduce here or do we stick to the plan? You're only 10Ks in.
Can I tune in? Sorry, I don't think
Yeah.
I can have my camera on.
No, we've got you.
Yeah, I would probably give it like 15, 20, 30 minutes and try hold that. But if the RPE stays the same, I think the plan's got to change and you might need to drop your efforts a little bit.
Cool. Anyone agree with that? Disagree with that?
I would agree because it's like a run off the bike. After like 5 minutes, like the first 5 minutes, your legs feel really weird, and then they start warming up again, and it's like, oh, it's okay.
Both of my sorry, Liam, go.
I was gonna say, yeah, I agree because coming off the swim, especially in an Ironman, it's a long. Your legs can feel like jelly. I'd also just make sure that I've eaten or taken enough water and whatnot since that swim. Make sure that I'm sticking to the fueling plan as well, just because sometimes you get so caught up, you might be not taking enough at the start. So check that. If none of that changes, then I'd drop it. But otherwise, yeah, I'd try hold it.
Yeah, from both of mine. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say, speaking from experience, this sounds like exactly how my first 770.3 went. I hopped out the water, feeling great. Hopped on the bike, and I wore a wetsuit in a wetsuit optional race, so that made me start in the back. So I was like flying past all these grandmas and whatever that swam way in front of me, and my legs were feeling terrible. But I told myself I was going to hold a certain power, so I stuck with it, and by mile 15, mile 20, I believe that's like a little over like 30, 40 kilometers, something like that. Had a huge crash. Like, just, it really got in my head and really messed with, just the whole way I was biking, got me really distracted going through an aid station, and ended up ruining my entire race, really. So I would be a little bit more hesitant, especially with that, to pull the power back a bit sooner, maybe, and just let myself really get settled in, because I think it's more worth it to maybe be a couple minutes behind on your bike split than, risk something catastrophic like that happening in the race.
Yeah, I think it's important to like listen to your body, but I do tend to agree with Finn and the rest of these guys here is that when you come out of the water, like from both my experiences, Cairns and Busso, my heart rate was super high. My glutes were both on fire. And it takes about 10, 15 minutes to like settle down. And then once I do, it's like, okay, RPE's down, heart rate's in check. So coming out of the water and even going onto the run after T2, your metrics can play tricks on you. Your mind can certainly play tricks on you. I think it's important if you've got a plan to stick to the plan. And then if it continues, like it's a long race, if RPs are staying up there and you can't hold it, that's when you got to reassess and bring it back. But especially initially 15, 20, 30 minutes in, just try and stick to the power. Don't give away free speed. That would be what I do. Also, Ryan, you said you past all these grandmas. It sounds like that was Nelson the other day. Nelson did a big swim around the jetty in Busso. You you were flying, mate, were you?
No, but I just wanted to jump in quickly. You know when you just said your heart rate was high after you got out of your 2 Ironman swims? Do you remember when you did that 5K swim with me
Yep.
What was your heart rate high then, or do you think the expectation, fans, people everywhere, all G'd up, heaps of people versus just going for a normal, not a big race?
Great question. And I think it's a combination of both. I actually think that at that race that I did with you, that 5K, my heart rate was super high, but I wasn't conditioned to
I
swim
was.
not 5K. I think until about 3.8, I was absolutely sweet. But that last lap, man, it was so long. So I reckon I came out
Plus, it was
feeling.
choppy. Yeah.
But no, I do think you're right. And when there's a big race and all eyes on you, and you're all excited, the adrenaline's pumping, your heart rate's going to go through the roof. And especially in the transitions when it's just so hectic, that's where you're going to experience that the most. So coming out of those, you should spend the first 10 to 15 minutes of after each transition sticking to the race plan as best you can, and then just letting everything settle into what you would normally expect, because it is hectic, man. A great question. I think that's really, really good.
Are you sure you don't want to fly over here for the Roto swim on the weekend?
I don't. I can't, unfortunately. I'll tell you what, though, I'm getting back to the golf in about a week's time. I fucking can't wait for some routine, man. This trip has just been so much. I'm very excited to settle down again. Yeah. Right. So it's a pretty simple question, this one. What metrics or what different things, we've already talked about a lot of these, what are we looking at during a race? What are some of the things that we need to look at and maintain and keep track of?
Gosh, well, we've done nutrition. I feel like hydration goes very like under the table. I feel like
What
yeah.
Sorry, I should have asked this a bit better. What metrics? So, like,
Oh, metrics.
what data are we looking at and paying attention to help us with pacing the
I feel like
race?
wind would also be a big one. The wind would help.
That's a condition that will affect our pacing. But what are we?
Mm.
What metrics? Like what data? What data are we looking at?
Heart rate, power,
Heart rate, power. There's a big one
pace,
that. What was that?
pace, like run pace or swim.
Yeah.
If you got to look at the swim, yeah.
Yeah. This fourth one that I'm looking for isn't, well, we've talked about it a lot. It's not something that you can look at on your screen, but it's definitely feedback. It's definitely information that we need to be paying attention to, and that's RPE. So
I was about
what
to
are we
say.
feeling, right? Like that is super big. And then if we're looking at like the specific disciplines, we've got swim, bike, run, start a swim. We've talked about this already. The biggest thing that we're going to look at during the swim, the biggest information that we're going to get is the RPE, right? If you want to have a quick look at your watch and get your speed, great. But the biggest thing is RPE. What do you think is let's go, Ryan. What do you think is the importance? Oh, Jesus Christ! Oh, fuck this. What is the order of importance of the metrics on the bike? So we've got power, speed, RPE, heart rate. What do you think comes first when we're pacing on a bike?
Bike. There's kind of a top two that I think should be paid attention to is
Yeah.
number one RPE and number two your power, because obviously at the end of the day that's what you need to hold consistent, because like we've discussed, your different types of courses, like if you have a hilly course or you're riding into the wind on one lap of the loop and then you're coming back with the wind, like if you're looking at your speed, your power is going to fluctuate way too much. So really just looking at RPE and power.
RPE,
um,
power.
and
Liam, what
then
do you do first? Sorry, Ryan,
no,
I'll
no,
cut
you're
you off.
good. No, that's it.
Liam, what do you think is the first thing that we should look at on the bike?
I kind of look at like power and heart rate in relation to RPE. Like RPE is sort of separate to the two of them, and I sort of look at power first, then heart rate, and then make sure that's aligning with where I feel at in my RPE, because I know my numbers, so I know my target should feel a 5 or a 6 or whatever I'm trying to
Yep.
aim. And then so I'm just looking at power and then heart rate, making sure they're in check with where the RP is. That's sort of how I look at it, rather than 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Kate, anything different? What's the first one? I'm looking for the first one. What's the biggest thing that you would look at during a race? Is it RPE? Is it heart rate? Is it power?
I feel like it'd be heart rate. If my heart rate's like so
Okay.
high and I'm like just like everything system failure, I'd focus on that first. 'Cause I feel
So
like
if heart
pace.
rate's really low, do you push more power?
If I have a pacing plan, no, I'll stick to it. But if my heart rate's really high, I feel like what I mean by that is I feel like sometimes there's a connection between heart rate and your effort. There can be a big connection between that more than that of pace. So maybe if my heart was really high, maybe I'm struggling and my effort's a bit high as well.
I think on the bike, power is super reliable, right? And heart rate is a super useful metric to use. But if we're biking for 180 Ks and we've done plenty of rides with power and lots of data, we've done FTP tests, we can get really close to what you should be able to sustain for that 180 Ks just based off power. Now, it's not always perfect. Absolutely. There's going to be days and conditions. We're going to talk about lots of different conditions that can affect the power output later. But power should be our main focus. And then from there, we're using RPE and we're using heart rate to say, am I at the right power output right now? Yes, I've got a target power of 195, but I'm feeling cooked and it's not the start of the race. It's not the start of the bike. We're sort of 90 Ks in. I'm feeling really cooked. Do I now have to bring it down? What's my heart rate doing in relation to that? But guys, power, the reason we've got all your power pedals, the reason we're doing this is because that is what we're going to base your race plans off is power output. And then we're going to try and hit it. And then on any given day, you're looking at it and go, oh, that's actually not working right now. Why is it not working? Have I fueled enough? Is the wind cooking me? And you're going to have to adjust on the day. But power is the priority for sure. Okay. And then everything else will sort of complement the power output. All right. Run, we don't have power. On the run, we're not looking at power. We've got heart rate, we've got RPE, and we've got speed. What would be the priority there?
I was gonna say the pace slash speed.
Okay, great. Yep. Anything else? Liam, what do you reckon?
I'd say same as the bike. You go pace and then make sure, based off that, your RPE and then heart rate are falling in line with that. But pace is what you base it off.
That's what I would do, 100%. And I would have a pace target. And in the marathon, I had for the first sort of 12 Ks, I was planning to do 440s. Came out, was hitting 440s, was hitting 435s. RPE was low, heart rate was in check. I thought, great, 435s it is. As I kept going, it was all of a sudden 430s. Heart rate was still okay. RPE was still okay. Great, we're at 430s. Later on in the race, I might have paid for a little bit of this here, but started to slow down. 445s now, heart rate's quite high, RPE is really high, so we've got to peg it back. And it's just this constant sort of like tussle of all these metrics to figure out how can I get there efficiently? How can I get to the end well? All right. But that's the order of importance that I would do it as well. Speed or pace, sorry, and then working with heart rate and RPE really, really closely to get the best out of the run. All right. Cool. Any questions so far? Anything we want to touch on? We going all right? We loving it? Good. Kados touched on a few of these before. What are some? So we've looked at metrics that we're looking at to help us pace during the race. What are some conditions or variables that's going to really change how we pace now? All right, we've talked about a couple of these already. What's like some big ones?
I would say for one, obviously hills are going to significantly change. Another thing I think is temperature, because obviously not even just with pacing, you might have to take in a lot more to avoid, if it's hot, you're going to be sweating a lot more, potentially cramping. Yeah, I would say definitely hills and then the weather are the two biggest things.
Cool. Let's just talk about those, and then we can maybe find some others first. But hills, how do we race hills? Who wants to chime in with how you would attack a hilly course?
I don't have much experience
Oh,
on.
sorry.
No, you're good. I don't have much experience on a hilly course, but in the few races that I've done, I have a bad habit of gunning it when it's downhill. I just I have a really bad habit of doing that. And
So
then
what does
using
gunning
the
it downhill
momentum.
look like? Like you're still trying to hammer the power.
Yeah, and that's usually what I do. Whether
Okay.
bike and run, that's I have a
Are
bad
you
habit of that.
are you ever spinning out on the bike?
Yeah, most of the times I am. It hits
Okay.
a point where I spin out and then I give up until I get it to a flatter or I can put more power down.
All right. Anyone else? Liam, what are you doing in hills?
I'm not too sure. I feel like you know the course, so it should be in your race plans most of the time. And I think it's very varied per course. Like if your course only has one or two hills and they're not major climbs, you could either plan to give it a crack or just coast up it. If it's a proper climb, then you'd probably be having a proper plan to hold something a bit more conservative up it so you can not blow up. But I think hills are a bit too varied per course.
Okay, so let's try and make it a little bit more specific then. Let's just talk as a general rule first, and then we'll give you some proper examples and we can dissect it, right? General rule. Are we going to ride more power up a hill than on a flat?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely will.
I feel like your answer was going to be different, and then you saw us nodding, and you were like, "Yeah."
No, I thought for some reason you were about to say like we're gonna ride the same power up the hill. I was like, oh, you have to go more like.
100%. So, as a general rule, if you're coming up to a hill, you're going to push more power than if you were just on the flat. And that's just because you need to get up the hill, essentially. And that's okay. The pacing here is still super important, like really, really important. You can't just go and smash your legs up a hill and then just assume it's going to be sweet. But as a general rule, if you're coming up to a hill, even if it's a rolling hill or if it's like a really steep hill, as a general rule, you're going to push more power, right? Now, let's talk about a specific one. Let's talk about what can we talk about? Like, let's just go Cairns. So Cairns has like one pretty decent hill, climbs for about, I think it's like a K and a half or 2Ks or something, pretty steep. And then the rest of them are sort of like this, rolling, right? How do we attack rolling hills? Like, what's the game plan around getting over rolling hills? Keep in mind the goal is to keep the speed as best we can, right? How would we attack rolling hills?
Oh, I'd say gun it up, gun it down,
Okay.
and then use momentum to try and carry you.
I was like, he's nailed this, and then you said the second part, and I was like, he's not nailed it.
That's 50
in my situation, like in my experience, when I was doing cans and I had a rolling hill, like if I can get speed downhill and then attack it going up, carry the speed over the hill, and then relax. Right, we're not gunning it down. It's really important that you carry the speed over the hill. What that means is like you're powering up, and then you're getting over the crest, and you're putting power down until a point where you're at max speed, and then you're in the bars and you're just staying aero, right? And that's when you rest. And there's such good opportunities to rest your body. When you're doing 0 watts and you're just in aero going fast and you're relaxed, your body's recovering really quickly. I mean it. So, Cade, please stop gunning down
Yeah,
the hill.
no, especially for New Zealand, because I know New Zealand is rolling, so that's something it's good to know.
You've got a bit of license, man, to attack the hills. Definitely, like get over them, power down over the hill slightly for we're talking 5 seconds, and then once you're at full speed again, just get out of the power, sit down. You'll know when you're at max speed, right? And then you sit there, and then you're just like, whew, I'm relaxing, I'm resting. Okay. Cool. What about like a real like so I did Marbella recently. The first like 19 Ks is just all uphill. I said it is steep as well. Like what are we doing there? Are we attacking it drastically or are we conservative? Are we like it's a bit vague that question, but like how would we go about it?
Can I
I
jump in there?
personally,
Yeah,
no, you got
here
it.
you go.
I would, if it was like super hilly, I would try to stick to the race plan. I'm not really sure, but I would probably try to stick to the race plan and try to keep like a steady cadence. Make sure you're not like in a really too high for gear and then you're pushing too hard.
I
If it's
agree. I would say
hills,
drop the gear and just keep spinning if you can keep putting
yeah.
like the power down.
Okay. Anything else? Ryan, you were going to chime in before, I think.
No, I was basically going to say exactly what he said. Just stick to the plan, especially if it's early getting out of the swim. I would say don't push nearly as hard as you would maybe deeper into the bike. But
All right. So obviously not too many of you guys have dove into my Marbella results, okay? Because I did not do that at Marbella. What do very hilly courses have If you're going uphill, what does it have a lot of as well?
Downhill.
A lot of downhill. Like, we're talking a lot of downhill. Right? If you're doing 19 Ks going up, it means that you've got 19 Ks coming down at some point, right? Or doesn't necessarily mean that, but it means roughly that you can have a hell of a lot of downhill. So if you stick to the race plan, let's say you've got a target plan of now, admittedly, Finney, there might be a race plan where at this point in the hill we're doing this much watts and then you're going to rest, right? And if that is the race plan, then great, stick to it. But it doesn't mean that we're just going to have a consistent power output for the whole race and then you're going to try and hit it going up the hill, because then once you get to the downhill, you're going to be at zeros and it's just going to drastically drop, right? So if the race plan is to attack this hill and spend 20% more than what we would normally do on a flat, great, go on and stick to the race plan. But when I did at Marbella, I went pretty hard up that first hill. And then guess what happened when I got over the hill? I got to rest. I got to rest so much, man. There's so much time to just let the body recover, and the body does recover really quickly. So I don't necessarily think it's hammering it, and it's not you're not pushing as much power as you are over a rolling hill because you're trying to carry the speed over a rolling hill. But absolutely, you can spend more energy going uphill if there's going to be plenty of downhills coming, right? So keep that in mind.
What sort of heart rate were you pushing for, like in Marbella on some of them big hills, or what sort of zone were you aiming for?
Have a guess. What do you think?
155.
Any other guesses?
Wait,
I
what
would
did
have
he say?
said. I think he said 155.
Say 155.
I would have said for zone high zone 2, zone 3.
About 155, that would be it.
Wait, is
It was
Marbella, is that a half or a full?
half. It was about 160 to 165s for the hills, the big hills. And they were consistent. We're talking like going up for 40 minutes or so. And I was holding that for that long purely because I knew that I'd get so much rest. And it's like, as long as we're not sitting above that anaerobic threshold, right? That's where you're just going to cook really, really quickly. But if you're sitting there, and even if you're like peaking just underneath it, right? And then you get lots of rest, your body's going to recover really quickly, get rid of all that lactic acid, and then you're good to go. That is just from experience, guys. It is a fine line between going above it and beyond it, and you need to get really in tune with your body awareness and understanding where that threshold is. But absolutely, man, to get the most out of a hilly course, you can push going up a really hilly course. You really can, if there's lots of downhills, right? Okay, enough about hills. Heat. What about heat? How does heat and humidity change our pacing strategy, our race?
Actually, it would affect your hydration if you're dead thirsty and you just keep consuming water,
Not
less
only
stitches and everything.
but fuel as well. It's so much harder to get fuel in when it's hot and humid. So you got to keep that in mind as well. And if you can't get enough fuel in, that means you can't quite push as much power, right? And you can't quite race at the intensities that you'd like to. So you have to bring back that, not only because you're trying to cool your body because it's really hot, but also because you're not getting the right fuel in. I'm being a little conscious of time here, guys. Is anyone in a rush? We've probably got another 10 minutes or so. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I low-key got to bounce at in 5 minutes. But
Okay, we'll just let us know. In fact, what we'll do now then, mate, is I'll show you guys a bit of this so you get to see it as well. I've started creating a race. Whoa, that's confusing. I've started creating. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
So I've started creating this race day calculator. It's not perfect, but I've put in my results. I've actually put in Finn's results as well, and it's coming out okay. Now, I'm not going to be giving this to you guys, but what I have created is a pacing cheat sheet, right? So this is just essentially, if you're a beginner and you're doing the swim in Ironman, we'd want to sit in zone 2 heart rate. RPE should be 4 to 5, and you'd probably be sitting about 10% over your CSS. Right? If you're doing half Ironman and you're on the bike and you're sort of like an intermediate athlete, you'd want to sit at upper zone 2, maybe low zone 2 if you're feeling confident. And then your RP will be 6 out of 7, and you'd be sitting at sort of 78% of your FTP. All right. So I'll give you guys this afterwards. I'll give it to everyone, and you can just it's quite basic, but I would recommend that you sort of look at it, try to figure out what your power outputs would be on the bike based off these percentages, so you can sort of paint a picture for yourself. And then once you get closer to race, so for example, Cade is got his race in New Zealand coming up soon. We're gonna go through this a little bit and try to create a plan as to what. See, I've got a 70.31 here. Sort of create a plan based off of your testing. So your CSS is here, your FTP, and then your running test. You put these numbers in, you put your weight in, and then it should spit you out some power targets for the bike, pace targets for the run, and a finish time based off where you think you're at, whether you're beginner, intermediate, advanced, low range or high range. It's and then we've also got here like different course conditions. So if I change this to flat, everything changes in the speeds and everything. But it's, again, like I said, it's not perfect. I'm still working on it. Have I lost you? You see me again? Yeah. But that's the plan. I want to show you so that once we, like for Cade, sort of, I think we're doing this next Monday, mate. We're going to go through that. We're going to plan out like what power targets we're going to go for. Where do you think you're sitting in the low range, high range, and just talk about it and try and build a plan. Okay, and we'll do that with everyone. Liam, you got your race coming up. Ryan, you've got your Ironman coming up. So we'll be going and doing that soon. But I'll give you the pacing cheat sheet for now, so you get a bit of an idea, and then you can look at your own data and figure out what you think it might be, and then we'll dive in deep and do it together. All right. Cool. Sweet. That's all good. We'll leave that. Right. Well, I've got a couple more questions here. I don't want to keep you if you're feeling like we've covered a lot today. It's been really good. Should we leave it there? Maybe. I think we should. Yeah, let's call it. Ryan's got still 2 hours to go on his ride.
Yeah,
So.
he's still
Yeah.
fucked.
All the time
Finny,
to kill them.
Finny, anything you want to add before we end the recording, mate?
I feel like you've done a pretty good job. You were talking about the heat and humidity as well. And I just wanted to point out as well, humidity is probably a bigger factor than heat, because if the humidity is super high, then the point of sweating doesn't really work. So when you sweat, the way it cools you down is when it evaporates off you. But if the humidity is super high, you cannot like cool down adequately. So that's a really big factor, I think, humidity.
I think we lost him. I think we've lost him.
Oh no.
Oh no. He's stuck on the Plato. Plato, yeah, he's stuck on the fucking Aristotle's Plato. Oh no, he's gone now.
He's gone.
Yeah.
He is gone. Ah, there he is. He's gone. So
It's
right,
just the boys.
He's just us.
It's-
Well, so you guys are doing Geelong, right?
Sorry,
I
what'd you say?
am.
Then Liam, you're doing Geelong, and Ryan, which race
Yeah.
are you doing?
I'm doing Ironman Texas in April.
Oh, that's so cool.
April.
Yeah.
I'm coming to New
Oh,
York in like a couple months.
No way.
Yeah, it should be pretty cool.
New York City?
Are you doing?
Yeah.
Mate, that is so cool.
Okay,
He's
It's
back.
enormous. Like,
Sorry about that, guys.
Sorry,
What happened
Liam.
there?
What was your question?
I was gonna say, are you doing the full or half? In,
Nah, just the half.
The half, yeah.
Yeah, just the half of that one.
Love to hear the boys talking about their races. Sorry about that cutting out there, guys.
no worries.
I forgot my train of thought. But I'll end the recording. If anyone wants to stay on, you